Yellow. Maybe I should try to turn it. It wasn't, I don't know if it was working right before. I have my little desk here, but I'm really trying to like do less right this moment. And drift off to La La Land. Hi, Elias. So I'm just gonna kind of recap because I feel like my little light was red, and I think maybe all of my first thoughts were lost. So I'm thinking about, on Fridays, I always think about freedom. And when I think about freedom and how it comes to our life, it also shows up a big way in our mental faculties, in our emotional body. And before I learned about our energy, I had no idea about this stuff, and when I was learning about thinking well for myself, when I was learning about how to think better for myself, you're so adorable, Elias. When I was learning to do this in the beginning, it was very work. It felt very worky, to think on purpose. And when you've practiced not thinking good for yourself, not thinking good about yourself, or, that things will work out for you when you haven't lived that way, in the beginning, when you start to nurture those ideas, it felt really fake to me. It really just felt fake was my best word. My now word is just inauthentic. It wasn't aligned with who I was. It took some time for me to layer that in, to impress the subconscious, and for me to catch up to that version that I was wanting to project out, that I wanted to live. But when I was thinking about this today, I was listening to other people have a conversation. I listen to these debates on TikTok, and I really love to listen to the conversation of them. Mostly to hear how people think and how people don't think, how people sort of just go along with things. And I was thinking about myself, when things were harder, I just went along with that. I just continued going along with it. And until there was a reason for me to even think differently, why would I, The way that our minds work and our emotions, when our emotions aren't understood by us, it's really like driving around with your eyes closed, and we think we're doing so much for ourselves because we are action oriented and, we're making all these moves. But when our inside world is working against us, it doesn't matter how much effort we put into our action. It doesn't how much we try to prove ourselves to others. It won't ever land. It won't feel satisfying. And I know from my own experience, letting myself shift through that and learn that, I know that when I'm talking to somebody in the beginning and they're saying, that, well, that's stupid. I remember that. I can feel that was true. And I was the kind of a student in the beginning where I didn't believe in half of the things that pretty much saved my life, as far as healing, like depression and SI, not wanting to participate, and so much self-hate and dislike for me and all of me, everything, if I wasn't doing something for somebody else, and I cared about people, and if I wasn't doing something for somebody else, I didn't feel like I was mattering much. And even though the things that I was often doing for others, I didn't really want to be doing them either. I just felt like I had to be doing something. And all of the things that I were thinking about, none of them were good ideas for me. There, nothing around me was in, none of the inspiration to do better for me would grab my attention. It just seemed like a waste. You know, I remember I've lost 100 pounds twice. So the first time I lost 100 pounds, I remember how hard it was in the beginning to get started because it would, the whole diet thing sucked. I love food, and now I'm going to be sacrificing things. So it was easy for me to put it off one more day, knowing, oh my God, I'm going to have to quit it forever. One more day. And even in the harder patterns of my life where, life wasn't moving good for me, it felt a little like that, like changing would be forever. And this isn't comfortable, but it's familiar. So I guess I'll just stay one more day. And it seemed like when I look back now and I look at some of the things I've shifted away from, it's like, dang, how many times have I done things for a decade? And I haven't hit 5 decades yet, but I feel like when I tell these stories, I've done things like a decade long before it finally hit to like this rock bottom in my personal experience where I'm like, oh my God, it has to stop, you know? Now I just let it stop when it is obvious that it's not going to be worth it for me to show up as me. You know, if I can't show up and maintain my alignment, I'm not going to do that too many times. Obviously, if it's something that is required of me, I'm going to do it. But if it's something that's optional, I'm going to check no. Not interested, you know? And before, I would never turn down an opportunity to be somewhere, you know? Yeah, even when I knew I wasn't going to enjoy it, I shouldn't, I sure couldn't be by myself. I was my least favorite person. Like, I definitely didn't want to hang out with me. So yeah, but I definitely also didn't enjoy all the times where I was always sort of kind of trying to get myself like in a family. I wanted to be a part of a group that like really loved me, and I feel like it's a very funny thing. But now I feel like I have a great group. Like me and my three littles, we are a great group. And I feel like I'm not longing for that outside of me and us anymore, you know? And my oldest is 14, so it's not like I'm just I've been a mom for a minute. And this contentment has been here for probably about a year. Yeah, probably about a year, Being like sort of estranged from your family is a weird thing. And but I was kind of looking for this even before that. I guess I was always pretty estranged. My mom called me strange and weird on the reg, so now I call that in hindsight it's a compliment. Back then it felt like WTFE, but we all know better now, so I appreciate that now. But anyway, I appreciate knowing that I have the freedom to think anything that I want. I can think about things that are happening in my life, and I can think well about them. I can think they will go right for me. Hey, kitty, no. Or I can think they won't. I can think, you know, I mean, geez. When I think about politics, that's really scary, you know? Especially when I think about who's in charge of that. And that's supposed to be the person or even people making the choices. It does not feel very secure. But I know that for me, like, I'm going to think well into my stability. I'm going to do the best that I can do to protect myself, my family, and my community, and to help where I can help. And I'm the kind of weirdo that sees it through. Like, I'm already looking at the other side. Yeah, the part of getting there feels messy. I'm not super excited for that. I'm hoping it's pretty quick. I'm not into doing it for a decade over here, you know. Since we get the memos now, can we expedite this? Can we get to the deliciousness, please? I think, yeah. I think that's kind of where it's been this week. You know, when anytime something is ending, even if the new beginning is exciting, it still can be like sad and grieving, and so it's been a lot of like things collapsing in on itself, like things to be really excited about, and also, wow, that's really sad, you know. Where we live, and this has been my favorite house. Makes me want to cry. I was doing better 2 days ago. And I'm totally fine. I get attached to things. One time my mom threw away my pillow when I was a kid, and I waited till she wasn't looking, and I snuck down in the trash can and took it out of the trash can. So, you know, I've learned and practiced detachment for maybe 5, 7 years. Yeah, 7 probably. But it's not something that comes very natural to me. When I love something, I'll just have it forever, you know? But I know that when I was getting here, it felt a little like I was sort of being, like, things were spinning, and I didn't have it as much say so. I didn't really know where all the pieces were going to fall. And, you know, for this to turn into this, you know, it's been great. As they say, this space owes me nothing. It's given me, oh my God, so much. My one baby kitten is right here, looking at what Elsie can do to kitten. But yeah. But it's also nice to be in a space where, even through and with uncertainty in some spaces, I've practiced, you know, kind of knowing and trusting, and knowing and trusting, and knowing and trusting, knowing and trusting, and watching what happens, knowing and trusting, watching what happens. I would have to make myself be upset or scared. Like, whenever I cry, it's just because I'm like, oh, it's like that. It's not like I'm crying because I'm devastated. I'm just like, you know, I know, you got to know what I mean. It's one of those, it's almost like eating the last bite. Like, you don't want to eat the last bite, but you're going to eat the last bite. But it's, you know, it has been the best bite, that's for sure. I've always been, okay, since I've been a single mom, so 6 years. Wow, I'm I'm doing everything so long. Um, you know, I've kind of daydreamed about relocating me and my littles to this beach farm. And yeah, maybe the universe wants to give me a beach farm. Could be. Jack. Oh my God. He's like nuts. Where's my button? Where's the button? Hey, buddy. Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe not. There's space down there. Hello. Peekaboo. I love him so much. Super adorbs. Can't give him a button back. All right. Well, I just wanted to share some thoughts about that. And then it had me wondering. See, I remember, oh God, it's so embarrassing. Oh, I feel embarrassed for Nancy of the past, even though it's totally ego. But one time I was in my, I guess, later 20s, and I was at an event, and there were people I didn't know. And I guess I've always been a mix of like woo-woo, even though I wouldn't have called it spiritual at all. I would have called it energy, but I wouldn't have felt spiritual about it. But I remember talking with this one person, and he goes like something, are you woke? I'm like, what? He's like, you awake? And I was like, what the fuck do you mean? Never mind. And I was like, and I didn't know what he meant for so long, And when I think about that now, it's just so funny to me because I was so not there. I was like easily a decade away from that starting. I went kicking and screaming. I almost walked the plank. It's actually funny because it's true, but this phone doesn't like the proppy prop. But anyway, I just wonder how many people, how many of us let ourselves think and be in a thought and don't even realize that we could do something with that thought and that would change our reality. I know that in the beginning, I didn't believe that our thoughts influenced our reality in the way that they do. I didn't understand it. And because I believed all this was a crock of shit in the beginning, I had to learn the science in it. I need to know why I should relax. Tell me why. Because this feels like fluffy cuss word. Oh my God, the cuss words. It's embarrassing. I'm not embarrassed, like actually embarrassed, but it's okay, maybe cringe a little, cringe. But anyway, like maybe ask yourself, like, how comfortable am I thinking what I'm thinking right now? How easily could I think differently about whatever it is I've been thinking about right now? Could I just change my mind if I wanted to? How far could I go with my mind change? Could I change my mind and think that thought for a minute and a half? And then see how easily you could do that. And while that seems like a meaningless practice, well, that would probably be a pretty fair introductory to how it feels starting all of this inner work stuff. It all feels for nothing in the beginning. And it's a layering, and it's something that it takes you showing up and putting in each loving idea to yourself, each nurturing feeling and response to yourself, to your mistakes. Each time you don't call yourself a dumbass and say, it's okay, you're going to get it next time. You know, when you can start to be more encouraging to yourself and not your biggest bully. That shit makes a big difference out here. Pretty much every single way that I have learned that we get to experience life thus far. And unless we are taking flight. Oh, I gotta be careful. My one cat does not like when I raise my voice. She'll beat me up. I have a scars to prove it. Oh my God. Also think she was having a little bit of like stress. She's now been able to like go outside and have fresh air. So I may not get beat up as easily anymore. That shit hurts. All right. Thanks for letting me share my ramble and my thoughts. I hope that you like your thoughts in your head. And just in case you're wondering, you do hear your thoughts. Somebody does hear them. I used to think that I could think whatever I wanted because no one could hear my thoughts, but you hear them. Your body hears them, and every cell in your body hears them. And they take it kind of seriously. And it would be good for you to think on purpose. And it would be really good for you to think well for yourself on purpose. Even if that first idea would just be, I at least deserve to not be beat up when I make mistakes, you know. Maybe I'm not great. Maybe I don't love me yet, but I guess I could stop being mean to me, you know. Baby steps, you know, baby steps. They make the big shifts out here. It's quite a tricky thing. All right, I'll start the ramble over if I don't go now. Bye not. Oh, it's 10:22, my birthday. Bye-bye.